Obviously, Senator Marco Rubio is our guest today. Senator, nice to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Just a reminder for our viewers, we like to get through 4 questions. Hopefully we get through a lot more, but this is purely their questions that we like to ask you. Put them in a little context, bring in some breaking news, and we have ourselves usually a really fun time. So I'm going to start off with the news of the day. Turkey has shot down a Russian jet. We know Turkey is a member of NATO, and there's a lot of statements coming out really within the last 10 minutes from all sides about what should be done. Rudy, one of our viewers, says this: is Turkey still an ally to Senator Marco Rubio? How would President Rubio handle what happened overnight?
Well, first, Turkey is a member of the NATO alliance, and so if the NATO alliance is to remain vibrant, then we have to live up to our commitments in that alliance. We can't decide that we're not going to work on behalf of one of these countries. Do we have concern about things happening in Turkey? I absolutely do. Erdogan has taken that country in a more, I would say, a little bit more radical direction. They've broken from a long-standing good relationship with Israel. You've seen him kowtow to some of the more Islamist elements of their political parties in the country. So there is deep concerns about what's happening internally within Turkey. And quite frankly, a little bit of lack of cooperation on their part in the fight against ISIS up until very recently. That said, they are still a member of the NATO alliance, and if we were not to come to Turkey's defense and assistance in any instance, it would undermine the NATO alliance. And so that's something we need to understand, because NATO is as important today as it's been in 20 years.
For example, if Russia, because Russia's saying today, you know, this is an unfriendly act, this is a stab in the back. If Russia actually takes measures, and we don't know what those are, against Turkey, what does the United States do?
Well, first, it's the reason why I warned about having Russia in the Middle East is so complicated. I warned exactly, specifically, this could happen, that there could be an incident with Turkey, a NATO ally, that they could have, that they could aggressively fly over their territory and be shot down. They do this to the Baltic states, and obviously they did it in this case when it comes to Turkey. So what would a confrontation look like? Well, first of all, you've already seen it, and that is, what will the Russian response be? And this is a critical moment, because if Russia believes that they can respond and retaliate against Turkey because NATO is not going to do anything about it, what they are basically doing is they are making the argument that NATO is no longer viable, that it is a feckless alliance. And so it's important for us to be very clear that we will respond and defend Turkey if they come under assault from the Russians. Otherwise, the entire NATO alliance comes into question.
You know, it's interesting. Dan has a question, just came up on our chat about that. He says, if that's the case and we're forced to defend Turkey, then you have Russia and Syria and Iran on one side. Is that a formula for war?
Well, we would hope it wouldn't reach that point. My sense is that if, in fact, we were true to our word on and showed that we were going to be supportive of Turkey in this engagement, my sense is that the Russians would not test it. They do not have the capabilities to confront the NATO alliance, particularly the United States, or even the Turks for this matter. And so I don't think Russia, you know, at the end of the day, although Vladimir Putin is a gangster and a criminal, he is also a geopolitical actor who makes decisions on a cost-benefit analysis. And he'll have to do something to save face. But ultimately, he is not going to test the alliance if he believes the alliance is going to stand up to him, because he'll lose in that confrontation, and that would be an even bigger setback for him.
All right, so we'll wait and take a pause at this moment, see which all sides do, and then, of course, what place the United States is. Today, of course, happening right at this moment, the French president is meeting with our president. A lot of conversation, obviously, around ISIS and the Paris terrorist attacks. Sal wants to know, at this very moment, if you were meeting with the French president instead of President Obama, how would you handle it? What is priority number one when it comes to our allies?
Well, priority number one in this case, it's obviously we're in a unique situation where the French have been more forward-leaning than the president has been in the war on ISIS. But I think at this moment it calls and continues to call for what I've been advocating for a while, and that is a true coalition to confront ISIS. And each nation and each part of the coalition has a different part to play. ISIS needs to be defeated on the ground by a ground force. And that ground force needs to be made up primarily of Sunni Arabs, Sunni Muslim Arabs who defeat them on the ground and retake Sunni territory. But they will require air support, logistical support, and special operations support from the United States and from our allies like France and others. And so we would be discussing how to bring that coalition together, how to get more countries in the region to accept refugees, especially Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and ultimately how to bring together the air support and the logistical and intelligence support.
Let me stop you there
that the ground force will need to succeed.
We're going to take a quick commercial break in a moment, but Jolie really wants specifics on this. She wants to know, how do you suddenly get these Arab nations who for years have not been involved in Syria or accepting refugees to come to your side and say, yes, President Rubio, if that's the case, we will join you in this?
Well, the truth is these nations have had interest in being a part of such a coalition in the past, the Gulf kingdoms and others, but it will require American presidential leadership. That is the power of America, the power to convene and bring these nations together to confront this. The Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Saudis, they understand that ISIS views their leadership as heretics and wants to overthrow their kingdoms, or in the case of Egypt, their governments. They know there's a real risk here, and I think they are willing to be a part of a ground force, but only if America provides the assistance for that to be successful, like the airstrikes, like the logistical support, and a greater commitment to special operators on the ground. I believe that they will participate. They're not unwilling participants. They just don't trust the president. He hasn't shown any leadership, and they view him as unreliable.
Senator Rubio,